Hi, and welcome to another episode of Kuntarkis. My name is Michael Yon. This episode is Where Spirit Soars and Where It Stops. So, without further ado, here's Kuntarkis.
I got taken out of my body last night, and I felt there was an energy around me. I could feel like a force field, and I said, "Oh, that's got to be Father." That's the first thing I said. I went through the wall, and then I just travelled at the speed of light. And I even saw Spirit World. I went through Spirit World into another dimension, and I just travelled, and something looked familiar. And I said, "Am I going to Shikani? Is Father taking me to Shikani?" And suddenly, it felt like maybe, I don't know, maybe 11 minutes. And suddenly I could see the planet in the distance. And there was Father waiting for me, just hovering, just standing there hovering. And he looked at me and smiled. And he said, "Are you willing to open up the gate to allow us in?" And I said, "Yes, Father." And I did. And we just had a really lovely time, mate. It was really lovely. Sitting on the veranda, sipping this unusual tea that he brought. It's green tea, but it's got an unusual taste. Beautiful. And he just created it. We sat there, which felt like for hours. And then we went down and we walked through the massive rainforest, this really big rainforest that seemed to go on forever. And we just talked and talked and talked. And he said to me something very interesting. He said, "My son," he said, you are getting very lonely." And I said, "Depends how you mean that." I said, "Father, but yes, I'm lonely for Shikani." He said, "That's what I mean." I said, "Yes, I could be here for 1,000 years and I would still not be bored." And he laughed his head off. So we just walked around, mate, and just talked. He's always walking with his hands behind his back a lot of the times. It's really interesting to watch. And I asked him why. I'd never asked him before. And he said, "It's just an old habit." He said, "When I was a scientist," he said, "I would walk with my hands behind my back when I was speaking to other people. It was just a common thing back on Zybeck, Zybecupa." Yeah, it was very interesting, mate. Very interesting. I think that made me feel a little bit lonely in wanting to be there, to get out of this vibration of negativity.
Yeah, because you can't just spend an hour there during the day by will whenever you want. It just happens more spontaneously. So
Yes.
you're kind of locked out to some degree.
Yeah, locked out. I do when I do meditation, I do actually train myself still now when I'm physically awake to project myself into that vibration. So yeah.
Have you done it where you're awake and you?
No, I haven't done it, mate. I haven't done it, but I still practice. If I can do it from a spirit's perspective, and I can create a body, well, to me, in my mind of understanding, there's no reason why I can't project myself when I'm physically awake and literally see everything that's happening.
You'd be seeing.
I even try to. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Because you'd be seeing both, wouldn't you? You'd know that you're in your physical body, but you're leaving your physical body, but you know it's awake. Wow, I never really thought like how that would be, because the idea that your body's awake would, or even if you're in meditation, would mean that normally that your spirit is housed within it. So you're doing both, yeah.
Yeah. I find that I've had, I should say, quite a few experiences over the years, but in the last probably the last 7 years, I've had a few where I faced the mirror, and for some unknown reason, it was like I was meant to, and I would project my spirit to my left or my right. And I practiced that for years, and nothing ever happened. But I never stopped, because I've always believed that everything, no matter what it is possible. And there was a time up at Aruna, which is up in Caloundra. It was the first time I literally projected my spirit to the left. It just came out as the same shape as me, but in a light form, pure light. And then I said, now make a physical body. Well, that again took me probably another year and a half. And I was still at the same place. And I did it again. And I achieved it. I actually saw my body forming that looked solid. But the problem is you become excited and you lose the form of concentration. Right? And then that's what happens. You just go back in your body. But I know that's 100% possible, that we can project our spirit out of our body, and over time, through the mind, consciously, we can create the spirit into what feels like or looks like solid matter. Because we are limitless beings. That's why these aliens on this earth have been trying desperately to dumb us out in every way possible. They have done so much research in the science area to try and bring us down consciously. I mean, I listened to this guy, Robert Kennedy Jr., just the other day, and I lost it. But I heard him say something that really made me think again. He said, the reason we're taking the fluoride out of the water is this for health, but also to help cleanse and unseal the pineal gland, which is your spiritual chakra. And it literally prevents you, if it's sealed or encased, it prevents you from connecting to anything beyond the physical. And that's interesting that he actually said that for a politician.
Yeah.
You know, that really intrigued me. So that's the truth, mate. Nearly, I reckon at least, it's got to be 85% to 90% of the human population have their pineal gland encased in fluoride. And I think these aliens know it. They discovered it. And that's why 37 years ago in Australia, I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but in Australia, they actually put in fluoride and aluminium into the water. Aluminium dumbs out the brain. Eventually, will cause you to have dementia, Alzheimer's. That's what aluminium does. That's why they create all the windows out of aluminium. That's why they create pipes out of aluminium. And if anybody had the intelligence to research the people that worked in aluminium factories and looked at the ones who may have passed over or possibly had dementia, they would discover it's because they worked in a factory that created aluminium. Interesting.
Yeah. So going back to the spirit being out of the body while the body is still conscious, do you think there are, because I know this is a thing that aliens do, they do pause during the day and they might leave their body as they relax and such. It must be possible that a person could even dance with their doubled figure self. Do you think so?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I'm not just saying that, mate.
You know
I know
it.
that's true. Yeah. I tell you another thing. I had an experience many, many years ago, and I was a sales rep, and I was driving out of Bendemeer in New South Wales, turning right onto the Oxley Highway to go over to Grafton, which is in also New South Wales, I believe. And it's a long drive. It's very long roads. And then you got about 45 kilometres of windy roads up mountains and all that, which is really dangerous in winter. But anyway, I was driving on this massive long road, And I realized, I looked down, it's like I was stargazing. And I looked down and I could see that I was doing 100. I won't say the exact amount because maybe I shouldn't say that, but I know I was going over the speed limit. And I suddenly felt on my left this massive pull. And again, it was like a pull coming out of a sponge, or like chewing gum. You're trying to stretch something.
Yeah.
And I suddenly turned my head really slowly, and I saw myself come out of my body. And I saw myself as if I was looking at myself, clear. It was silhouette. And it looked at me and smiled. And I suddenly looked at the road, and all I could say was, because I was lifting up, it was really weird. And I suddenly said, come back into my body. And instantly, it's like bang. I literally hit the side of the door. It's like my body, it was like a spring. And I had full awareness again. And I made sure I never did that again, mate, because I could have died physically right there.
Yeah, wow.
So we are limited not just by our own thoughts of limitation, we are limited to what is being done to us spiritually to keep us physical and not have that self-awareness, not to grow consciously. That way, we are easily controlled and manipulated.
Mm. And they do they somehow siphon our energy? Is that a thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
They can do that to make us very tired, yes. And the green reptilian, that's why they do some horrible things. Actually, I don't want to go into it really, but they do some horrible things to us, and that's to control us, to dominate us, and also to feed off our energy. And that keeps them also balanced in their own field, their own frequency, so we don't physically see them. So they do feed off us, yes.
You're saying, did you just say that our energy that they siphon off of us helps keep them invisible to us?
Yes, yes. Because it's all about energy. It's all about frequencies.
Mm.
The longer you are within a third dimensional vibration that has a frequency of, say, let's just say 17,000 cycles per second, and say their frequency is, say, 18.9. Well, the longer they stay in our frequency, it has a tendency to make their frequency equal to ours. That's why they only stay in for a very short period of time. They come back a lot because they can, but if they stay too long, suddenly you see all these movements in the physical person's body, like there's something strange going on. Or you might see a whole form of this green reptilian suddenly, and then disappear again. So that's something that they have to perfect, because it still happens where they can be seen, which is freaky to anyone that's looking at it.
Oh. Wow. Do you sometimes walk down the street and you open yourself up and you see spirits walking along as well?
Say that again, mate.
Do you sometimes you're walking down the street where there's other people around or not, and you see spirits just walking down the street as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, that happens a lot. Yes.
Really?
Yes. That does. A lot of the times I can turn it off, and I don't want it.
Mm.
But when I say spirits, or when you say spirits, you must be talking about just normal humans that have passed over.
I am.
Yes. Yes. There are other types of entities. They also can be alien. But alien entities seem to always come at night. Do you know that?
No.
That's really interesting. Always seems to come at night. Father won't even enter this vibration. You know that?
Really?
No. No. He explained something to me I suppose I can say last night, because I did ask him. And I said to him, I says, Father, I know you came to me when I was on Mount Tambourine. And he said, yes. And I said, you came in the form of when you were a Zybekyapa. He said, that is true. And I said, can you come anytime? He said, what I discovered was being within the earthly vibration of humanity as a species, and because of the negative energies that have been created, it can affect any being, no matter how high their frequencies are. And sometimes when their frequencies are very high, they can be affected more easily, which can cause a lot of issues. But I don't come there for that reason. I don't come because I don't want to cause any issues with energy against energy, because sometimes it can manipulate somebody else's energy to a point where they may freak out or cause harm to themselves. You remember, like, human combustion?
Yes.
Human combustion happened a lot in the 17th and 18th century, especially in England. People were combusting a lot when they were spiritual people, doing seances and all that type of thing. And their energies were a little bit higher in vibration, so they attracted alien forms. And alien forms came down not realizing what could possibly happen. And what it did to the humans, it combusted them to a point where they literally burnt up. Literally burnt up. Their clothes were not marked or slightly marked. Their shoes still had the bones of their feet in it, but the shoes were not even marked. Yet their entire body was, what's the word, incinerated.
Incinerated, yeah, in spontaneous combustion. Is it because of that they are vibrating so fast, left and right, kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's the higher vibrations that suddenly hit a vibration that could be like, say, 89,000 against, say, 17,000.
So they kind of get microwaved, so to speak.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. And they didn't realize. And now it doesn't happen. I haven't heard of anything like that on Earth for a very long time.
Oh, you reckon the aliens realized?
Yeah, the aliens realized. Yes.
Yeah, because they meant well, but then they didn't realize that would happen, so they stopped doing it because now that they know. Yeah.
And if you go through some research and check it all out about human combustion, you'll find it all over the planet in the last, say, at least the last 200 or 300 years. A lot of it. I think I might have mentioned to you there was a young lady. She was dancing. I think it was in the 1900s, about 1911 or something like that. And they were at a big gala where they were doing. I'm not exactly sure what they used to call it, but they were all dressed in their sort of, their sort of creamy white dresses, and they were sort of laced and very well dressed and all that, or they were getting married or whatever the case may have been. But apparently she was dancing and she was feeling really hot. And it's recorded in history because I've read it. And she literally started having sparks out of her calves, out of the bottom of her calf, and out of her shoes. And she went around screaming because suddenly it came out of her arms and out of a shirt or her dress or whatever. And she was running and running, and her boyfriend grabbed her and embraced her, and he was feeling the heat too, and he was starting to heat up really bad. So he let her go, and she literally burnt up. And that's recorded, man. She totally burnt up. There was nothing left, not even bone, just dust. And yet her dress wasn't even scorched. Right? No one could explain it.
No, can you?
And that's happened all over the world. That's what they did say, they believe it's chemical, like a chemical reaction of some description. That's what they were saying.
Still the only one we've heard of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Because that doesn't seem as spiritual now, does it?
No, mate, that's not
No.
spiritual.
It's not like
No.
an alien trying to dance through her.
No, no,
uh,
no. These situations, they do occur for whatever the reason. So it's just human combustion, and all it is in truth, it's the frequency that is almighty present within that person being inundated with frequencies that could be 10 times higher in vibration. And that just heats the body up, makes the blood literally boil, and suddenly whatever's in the body sets it off, gone within moments.
I guess I do. That was a good explanation that your father gave about why he wouldn't come down to Earth anymore. I think I do understand it. You understand it.
Yeah, because I've asked him on several occasions and he's avoided that. I've asked him to come and be with his daughter, comfort her. And as much as he said he would just adore to do that, he said, I cannot, for whatever reason. I know what's going to happen, mate, when we take our last breath, mate. This is what we chose, and this is part of your own personal self-responsibility. It might sound like a poor excuse, but that's part of what existence is. We choose certain things, and we go and do it. And it's like, if you marry a mass murderer and you won't leave him because you love him, well, your parents, they're not going to support you. Because they're not going to support you because you're married to a mass murderer that's killing people. It's the same principle. It's the energy. That person that's doing the murdering has got a very low energy. And if you get sucked into it, you can become part of that drama. The old saying is you go into a house full of druggos and you don't want to take drugs, but eventually you will be sucked into it because of the vibration. It's energy. Energy. It's like going into, say, live with the pygmies, right? Pygmies are.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like going to live with the pygmies. They eat people. They eat human flesh. And there's no other food. And you can't leave. Well, you have a choice. If you don't want to eat the people, they will eventually eat you when you die. They don't care. They're not judgmental in that point. They'll just eat you because it's food. It's like a tiger. A tiger could be your friend for a day or two, and then it gets hungry and it'll just rip you to shreds and eat you. It's energy. Energy, you can't change another's energy levels if they vibrate at a certain frequency, because everything does. Because we're all different. Somebody said to me only yesterday afternoon, I met this new father, one of the best people I've actually spoken to since I've come to this school, and we seem to get on really well. And he was saying to me, he said he's astounded at the level of thinking of some people here. He's never lived on this mountain before, but unfortunately he's broken up with his partner, and he's now living in Toowoomba. But he finds he can't make friends, and he said it's just that they turn him away because he can't stand their way of living, their way of thinking, and that's all to do with vibration. You vibrate at a specific frequency. And if you vibrate much higher, you're going to find it very difficult to communicate with those type of people. And if you do, because you may have to work with them, they will put you down. They will annoy you. They will do things to get you into trouble. It's just unbelievable what these people are capable of doing. And a lot of them end up as narcissists anyway, or psychopaths.
Mm.
So who you associate with is very important for your conscious growth.
I heard a quote today that said, environment predicts performance, which is saying the same thing, right? The environment, as in who you're around, predicts the kind of output that you're going to be putting. It's the same as what you were saying, just a different way.
100%. Yes, 100%. Yeah. I've got to tell you this. I wasn't going to share this because I wasn't really feeling like talking about anything too deeply. But I not last night, the night before. I came out of my body and I ended up on the sand, and I don't know where it was. And the water was in front of me, and the waves were crashing. And I looked around, I could see no lights. So wherever I was, there were no lights of homes or anything like that. There was no lights in the distance. There was no moon. So nothing was shining. And it was quite dark. And the funny part about it, Michael, I actually felt the cool breeze because the waves were crashing. And I could feel the coolness of the water on my body. And that's what really fascinated me. And I know I'm being taught. And I've just got to work out what I am being taught. But suddenly, I started walking into the water. And I walked and walked and walked. And then I realized, I looked up, and I was really deep. And I kept walking. And then suddenly, there was this massive whale coming past, making his sound. You know, whatever sound they make, really beautiful sound, actually. And it came right up to my face. And I'm looking at it in one of its eyes. And it blinked at me 3 times. And then I looked down on the side. I could see a flap, one of his flaps flapping up and down. And I walked over to the other side. It wasn't. So I went over to that. And as I walked around, his eye followed me. And I ended up going behind the flap. And I took hold of it. And he started moving. And he took me. It felt like we traveled for an hour or maybe even 2. And he just took me down and down and down. And eventually we came to this, like a ravine. I think that's what they call it. And I looked down, it was as black as black. And he made these sounds, and then he went all the way down. Down and down and down and down. And I could feel pressure. And I said, I'm fine. I'm a spirit. But yet I look physical. And then I got down so far, and I suddenly recognized this entrance that I went through so long ago when I was living in Kingscliff in New South Wales, when I was doing these meditations on this high veranda where I was taken down with dolphins. And as he went down, it's like he forced his flap to move another way, which I let go. And then I floated over the other side of him, and he looked at me and he blinked at me again. And he left. And I watched him just swim away. Massive size. I looked at this opening. This opening would have been about at least 200 feet in diameter, at least. And it had the same sort of markings on the inside where it looks like it was carved out. And like something could travel down there, and it literally must have like lasered it out some way. And as I went down, I suddenly realized I wasn't in the water anymore. The water stopped at the entrance. And I walked and walked and walked down and down and down. And the ground had little gullies in a circle all the way down. And I just be careful I wasn't tripping because I was kicking this top of this rock or whatever it may have been. And I eventually got down and I saw this massive door. And the door that was there originally was no longer there. It was different. And it opened. And I looked and I walked in. And as I walked in, closed. And then another one opened. And I walked in. Before there was only one door. Now there's two. And they sort of lock inside of each other. It's just the way they were. What was really interesting, as I walked into the second door, there were people everywhere. The funny thing is, Michael, there were humans, all dressed in different types of clothes, nothing like the clothes we wear here. None of them stared at me. I looked down and I was dressed in the same clothes as them. And I walked around. I could see massive housing shaped so differently to what it was originally, but similar. I saw shops. I saw everything. And I just kept walking and walking and walking and walking. And suddenly my shoulder on my left was touched. And I looked over and I could see these fingers on my shoulder. And I turned and I said, hello. And this lady said to me, hello, Kuntarkis. I said, okay, you know me. And she said, yes, I do. My name is Kwana. Kwana. And I said, very pleased to meet you, Kwana. It's not a Kwana, it's like just Kwana. And she said to me, come with me. So I did. And we walked into this shop. And I said, this looks like a coffee shop. And she said, well, in a way, she said, it is similar to what's upstairs on the surface. Yes. So we walked in and she got me to sit. And the tables were really beautifully carved. And they looked like they were carved in some form of metal, but I don't know what it was. And it had like not a smooth surface, a sort of a texture surface. And then she said, would you like something to drink? And I said, can I? She said, why not? I said, I know it sounds silly, but can I have a coffee that's made of soy milk? She said, absolutely you can. And when she used that word, absolutely, I thought of me because I use that word all the time. And a few moments later, she came back with it, with this beautiful mug that had the most unusual shape. And what it had on the side was a whale facing upwards, wrapping around the actual mug. And I took a sip because I could see the steam, and it tasted just like beautiful coffee. And we sat there talking, and she asked me these different questions, and I asked her different questions, and it just went on. And I just enjoyed the coffee. And it felt again like I was there for several hours talking. And she explained so much to me, which would take so long to even talk about. They have been there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. They were brought down into the earth like that by an alien race that saw the tremendous violence that was on earth. They traveled the earth, these aliens, picking out certain people, even families, that were of the heart, that were not of the violence, that didn't have the violence in their genetics. And eventually, when they discovered all of that, they brought them down into the city. And that's where they've been living and evolving ever since. And they're probably down about 14, maybe 15 kilometers in a really secluded spot. And what is there is these massive mountains. They are so huge. And that's where this city is built, inside the mountain. What's more interesting is she explained something to me. They cannot be detected by any form of technology because these aliens want the harmony and the peace. And what they do, as soon as anyone comes anywhere near that entrance, the entrance automatically, consciously closes like a false door. and no one would actually know that there is anything there except a mountain. So they seem to be very well protected, and they seem to really enjoy their existence. They live in families. They live as singles. The aliens are interesting. Oh, they remind me a little bit of Cadiz race, but they're taller. They're probably about pretty close to, say, 6 feet tall, which is like, 2 meters, 1.8 meters, I believe. And they're very friendly. They're very helpful. They don't have ears like we do. They only have holes in the side of their head. They only have one nostril, which I've spoken about other civilizations having only one nostril, one lung. They dress. They never go around naked like a lot of alien creatures do, because they don't have their sexual organs exposed. Whether these ones do or not, I have no idea. But they're very friendly. So I just thought I'd share that with you.
Brilliant. We're going to have to figure out a name for them.
I have no idea what the name is, mate. I will find out. Let me put it that way. I will find out. I was very overwhelmed. There was a lot more that went on. I was taken into different places, like what we would call shopping malls. Theirs are a little bit different. I was taken into homes, where apartments, mainly there's no home, or I should say, there are no homes like we have here on Earth. Like where I'm sitting, right, I'm looking across to the right, and there's 1 home, 2 homes, 3 homes, 4 homes with a yard. They have apartments, all apartments in this entire area. And what I'm saying to you is absolutely massive in itself.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, you say the two of you spoke for quite a while. She would ask you questions and you asked her questions.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. She asked me also, do I enjoy living on the surface? And I said, no. I said, there's too much negativity. I said, too much aggression from people. It's quite amazing to actually witness.
You asked her, did she enjoy living there? And she probably said, yes, indeed.
Yes.
How many do you think?
How many? Oh, look, I'm only going by a rough estimate to what I saw, but I would say there'd have to be a few 100,000.
Yeah, wow.
At least a few 100,000. Yeah, because there were a lot, mate. A lot of these beings, and a lot of humans were walking around. And I think you'll find in history there was a situation that I read about through research that I came across many, many years ago about people disappearing and not being found. Whole families disappeared. I think they put it down to wartime, because no one really could give an explanation, so they just put it down to wartime. It's like the Second World War. Originally, they said only 12 or 15 million people perished in the war. Then the truth came out; it was over 69 million. So, situations are situations.
How did you find yourself coming back into your bed?
No memory.
Yeah, don't remember coming back.
No memory going back, mate. I have no idea why it was so elaborate in taking me there, but I think it's part of my teaching. The most interesting factor was literally waking up instantly and smiling, like I've done on many occasions. It was the same with Father last night. He looked at me and he said, well, it's time for you to return to your bed. Oh, I think he said no. He said, it's time for you to return to the comfort of your bed. And I no sooner went to put my arms around him, and I only got my arms on his shoulder, and I woke up. So,
Oh, wow.
And the interesting factor, Michael, anybody, when it comes to being human, I'm only talking about humans, have the ability to do what I do. and to evolve far beyond it in time. But we have to change how we look at things. We have to change what we believe in as a condition, as a belief system. And we have to go far beyond that to open up our own consciousness, to develop ourselves so we can grow consciously beyond what we are.
Yes, indeed. Yes. And so, and the lessons that you think you're facing, probably the Nipions have a part to do with that. And might it be, what was it gonna be that I was gonna say? I mean, what do you think it was? Like when you're at the beach and it's dark and this and that, what do you think the lessons might be?
Oh, the lessons. I think it's just, it's learning, mate. It's learning to understand the process of what you're going through so you can do things without having any form of fear.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's what it is, more than likely.
Yeah, because you were questioning, like, hang on, do I need to breathe as I'm going down here with the whale? No. And it's getting pressure and pressure. Oh, I get it. I'm spirit and I'm conscious, and learning to face and not need fear.
That's right.
Wow. This concludes another episode of Kuntarkis. If you'd like to find out more about Kuntarkis, find his website, which is etcconsciousness.com. He has articles there, he has his books listed there, and also if you have any reason to contact us in general for any reason, just email kuntarkis@gmail.com. That's it for now. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Michael Yon, and stay tuned for more.